We're going to be modeling a low res barrel, and our goal for today is to model basically a piece of geometry that is very low res and game ready using proper modeling techniques, and then take that model and continue to add to it in the next lesson to give a high level of detail, or LOD. So let's get started. First, we're going to need some reference. So I'm going to go, and I went ahead and looked up metal barrels. This is kind of what I want to model. My ultimate end game is to model something much like this. So this kind of model of a barrel here, you can see it has dents and waves and all sorts of good stuff. We're not going to really start with that. We're going to start with a more low res file. So we have to be well aware of at least the shape that we're going to use. So looking at reference is the very first step that you'll use when you're modeling items such as this. So our ultimate goal is to have a very low res shell and a very high res shell, and we're going to do some pretty cool things with them. So if I'm you, I would go and I would find a image template. So for instance, this one is a pretty good side and front view of a barrel that we could use, and it kind of gives us an idea of some dents and whatnot. So I'm going to go ahead and save this image, and we're going to throw it on the desktop, and I'm going to call it front image. And you could use one like this. Again, these are just for reference, so it's really, we're not going to use them as textures, so I wouldn't worry too much about any copyright issue. You're essentially just using them for their shape and proportions. All right, so now that I have some reference, and that one I just found was actually rather nice, I'm going to go ahead and close this, and we're going to set up our scene. So much like other projects, the very first thing we need to do is create a project window under File, Project Window. In the project window, we're going to hit the New button, and we're going to name this folder Barrel Project. All right. And we're going to go ahead and make sure, I'm going to put it on my desktop just to make sure it's easy to find for me. Make sure all my folders are there, hit accept, and that's a good start. Now that I have that folder and I have my front image, which it looks like I need to add an extension to, so I'll do that. There it is. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I put that front image in my source images. I'm going to use that later as reference. All right, back to Maya. So now that we're in Maya, let's set up the scene to our liking. So to use this image, we're going to create image planes. And we've done this briefly before in another lesson, but let me review it for you again. Let's go ahead and open up our 4-pane view, and we want the front and the side views apparent here. So what I'm going to do is hit spacebar, again, to maximize my front view, and I'm going to say view, and I'm going to go to image plane, and we're going to navigate to import image. Now that we have the image here, and we've already set our project, it should load to that source images folder. I'm going to double click and import this image. I'm going to scale it a little bit just to understand my units. We're going to talk a little bit more about those later. We don't really have a good top view yet. We're going to really just get the silhouette here. That looks great. What I like to do also, once I pull it in and now that I know it's selected, is I go ahead and make a display layer of that, and I go ahead and set it to R for reference. So I have VPR, and I can even double click and say image plane, just so I remember what this actually is. All right, now we have the image plane. We can hit spacebar. You can see it's available in the perspective view as well. And we have the ability to, again, move this as need be. We just take the R off, highlight it, hit W, and maybe we'll kind of put it in the middle here because we're going to use this front. So my origin, my 0000 origin point is right here in the middle of our grid, and we want that to be the middle of the model. All right, now we've locked that back down, so again, it's not selectable. Obviously, this is a cylinder, so that's the first shape we want to start with. So let's go ahead and create a cylinder using Maya, and let's start modeling. Now, there becomes issues rather quickly because as soon as you cover your image, it's kind of hard to see. So one of the little tricks that we use in modeling is we turn on a shaded mode called X-ray. And X-ray is found under shading, X-ray, and this gives you kind of a see-through method. Now, to me, this is great. It's still kind of hard to see, so I would suggest that you put your wireframe on shaded on. Now, that wireframe on shaded is going to allow you to better see your geometry. And there's ways that we can actually even change the wireframe on shaded and the color of the wireframe in order to best give you the most effective visual kind of feel to it. So to do that, simply add another display layer, and this display layer is going to be your cylinder. So I'm going to double click and call this, or I should say our barrel shape. And let's go ahead and make that yellow, something really bright. Now when I click away, that wireframe will be in yellow. Now I'm not going to lock this because obviously I want to manipulate and use this. All right, let's move on. This is a perspective bend at the top. I wouldn't worry too much about matching the bend. What I will do is kind of use my tools to kind of mark off where the specific tool cuts are going to be. So let's go ahead and do that. We have multiple tools we can use. We played with the multi-cut tool before. We can also use the insert edge loop tool, which is a rather nice tool that will allow you to just click on specific edges. And as you can see, it kind of just lets me place them where I feel is fit. Now, again, this isn't a perfect orthographic view. This is just to get an idea down of what you're doing. Now, those of you who are probably saying, well, wait, you inserted an edge loop with the multi-cut tool a while ago. That's true too. If you use your multi-cut tool and hold your control key and click and drag, I'm actually not even clicking, I'm just dragging with my finger on the control key, it will actually give you that edge loop tool as well. So you can use the multi-cut tool. It's multi-versatile, no pun intended, and it will allow you to kind of get the ball rolling. Now, let's go ahead and do that while we have it activated, and let's get some of these dents going in the actual model. So we're going to put one here because we're going to eventually dent it in there. It looks like we have a dent down here that we're going to pull in a little bit. And the next step really is just to start shaping it. And I do this just by gently moving the topology. I'm not worried too much about the extrusions yet. I'm just, again, shaping the basic feel of this. There we go. And this shouldn't take you too long, especially for an object such as this. So again, use that picture as a guideline as best as you can. You know, when you get to a point where you can't do it, then don't use it. And kind of start making your model. All right, so notice I have a decent shape here. Again, I'm in X-ray mode. So I'm going to go ahead and actually turn off this so you guys can see it a little cleaner. Let's go to our main view, and you can see, yeah, we have, you know, a rough version of what this could look like. So let's go ahead and let's add minor extrusions here. All right, this is very important. So we want to select this whole ring of edges because these obviously extruded outwards. So before I actually do that, let's go ahead and do a save as. And let's do a start. It's going to go into our barrel project scenes. Hit save. Let the little buttons come up. All right, so I can turn this back on. Now, you'll notice X-ray is not in the perspective view because that is, it's per view that you have to change these. So if you want wireframe unshaded, you have to activate it in here too, as well as X-ray view, which that's, you know, something else. So shading, X-ray, there we go. All right, so I'm going to look just to get an idea of that shape, and I can kind of understand what's going on there, so I don't really need that anymore, and I'm going to actually turn X-ray off, and let's select these. So if we want to select specific shaders, specific rings, I can do this multiple ways. I can click on an edge and double click, and when I do that, I can actually, if I double click on it and hit the up key, you'll see it will actually select the vertical rings. If I hit the left and right key, it will actually go up and down, and I'm using my arrows, my left, when I say left and right key, it will actually go up and down the ring. I can hit shift and double click that. I can also go to my select menu and I can convert selections. So if a selection, if I want it to be edges, I can convert them to edges. Obviously I already had edges. If I want to convert the selection to faces, I can do that as well. So we have a bunch of options that way. What I like to do in this method is essentially go to a nice side view and just use my marquee tool and highlight. And we're going to keep these, actually the ones in the middle are a little less apparent. So we're going to go to this, we're going to double check. I always check to make sure I don't have any random faces selected. And we're just doing the top and bottom, and we're going to do our edit mesh extrude. And we're going to pull those extrusions. We're going to see first what this tool does, and you can see this is kind of what we want it to do. So I kind of play with my arrows and I hit Z if I don't like something to go back, and I'm just going to pull those out, and I'm actually going to shrink those in because I want it somewhat rounded. You can see it has a little taper to it. So when I'm done, I'm going to go to object mode and click away, and you can see I'm starting to have that nice low poly barrel shape. All right. Now, we got a couple more extrusions to do. So let's grab the interfaces, and we'll do the same method. Again, I hop over to my orthographic views. You might as well use them, just so you know you're grabbing exactly what you need. And I'm going to grab those. And the extrusion button is actually on my shelf already. It's right here, so I'm going to use that. And another quick method is if you use extrusion and it's still active, and you want to extrude something else immediately after, you can hit your G key. Your G key will actually repeat the last command. So we're going to pull these out, make sure all around. We're going to scale them in. And again, we're just getting a basic shape here. That looks really nice. I'm going to turn on another button. If you have a faster computer, it actually looks really nice. It's this button right here. It says Screen Space Ambient Occlusion. What this is going to do is this is just going to give you a tad bit more shading. You can see without it and with it. It just lets you see the depth that you're bringing with extrusions. So it's kind of a nice shading method. I'm going to keep that on for this tutorial so you can kind of see what my computer is processing here. All right, now that we have that, we can go back and kind of look at our item 2. We can see we have multiple rings, extrusion rings here in the top. That's something that you can see in their geometrical model they didn't really address. They must have addressed this with texture, but we're going to eventually model all of this stuff too. So it's something we definitely want to think about when we take this model and make it high res. We're very close to being done with the low res shape right now, but let's continue on and let's see what else we can add while we're at it. Now, the interesting thing here is I kind of want to add a circle or a hole in here. And a lot of tutorials you watch online will have you do something called booleans. And booleans is basically this. You take a shape, you grab another shape, and you do mesh booleans difference. Or esh, let me grab them the other way so it makes more sense. There we go. Mesh booleans difference. And you have a hole, and everyone's like, wow, you know, that hole is great. It looks awesome. It looks so clean. It is and it isn't. This isn't the right way to do it. I'm going to show you the right way to do it here in a second using that same cylinder. It's worth the extra time if you're going to make a hole to do the following. All right, so I'm going to make this essentially this shape right here, and I'm going to go to my top view for this because this will be easier to see. And I want you to, like, in your mind, sketch out like a little grid. So this is a 3x3 grid, right? And I'm going to put this little guy in the middle. On that poly cylinder, I'm going to take this down quite a few steps. So I may even take this down to like 10. All right. And here's a really nice method to creating a hole. So I'm going to grab this face and I'm going to delete everything on the bottom, keeping the top face only. So you can see I have one thin little plane. And I'm going to grab that edge loop. Remember, I can double click on an edge and it'll grab the loop. I'm going to extrude that. we're going to just pull it out. Again, using this as a reference. And the more you do this, again, you may need to readjust this. Now that I have that extra edge loop, watch what I do. I'm going to grab specific faces here. And I'm going to pull these up. And you're going to see what I'm going to do real quick here. It's going to come very apparent. Kind of grab their partner. Look at this. And I'm using those lines as reference. Now, the trick I do is I usually grab all of them, hit the R key, and just scale the up and down box, in this case, to the middle. And then I'll grab everything on the one side, scale that box to the middle, and you're making essentially a cube. And this is all done properly. There is no bad geometry in this, and voila. If I turn on my wireframe here, you'll see I have a relatively nice start to a cube. It's something you may want to add more edge loops depending on the shape, but now I need to somehow fit that cube in here. So let's go ahead and figure out, it's not really a cube, it's more of a square, but let's figure out how to do that. So we're going to need to make these triangles into squares. So I have options to do that. So let's try a few that we already know. And I know some of these aren't going to work. I'm just showing you to show you. All right, so edge loop tool. Well, that didn't do anything. When I clicked on the edge loop, it does it here, but it doesn't complete it, and it creates actually an n-gon. So that's not going to work. Let's go to our multi-cut tool and hold control down. And it's really, at first you get excited, you go, oh yeah, it's going to work. Well, not so much. So I could get my multi-cut tool and physically make a ring. Okay, that's not too bad. What I'm going to do though is actually utilize one of the edges here. So if I double click on my tool, I have some settings here. And these settings can change depending on the item that you're using. So what I really want to do is I'm going to use my insert edge loop tool on this one. I'm going to double click, and I'm going to say insert with edge flow. And I'm going to insert an edge right here. And what this does is this actually averages out. It's very hard to see, but it will average out those, and it will like kind of find the middle ground, and it's really, really nice. So it's a good thing to do, because if I don't have that turned on and I just hit that there, it remains flat and it doesn't really give me that nice round edge. So using insert with edge flow at times is really nice. So once I have that edge, check out what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn that setting off too, just to be sure, because I may not need it next time. Is I'm going to grab my original edge, because I made a new one, and I'm going to just scale it in. Look what you got now. Isn't that cool? So we have that. Now, get my edge loop tool again. Check that out. So now we can go ahead and draw some edge loops. And you may have noticed already what I'm doing is I'm just creating squares or subdivisions within that. Now, I don't need to do this on the bottom. I can keep that tries, because I don't think you're going to see the bottom of this. So once I have that, I just basically pick one face, and I like that face, so I'm going to hit delete, and I'm going to put one there, and let's put, I guess the other one would be on the other side. It would be kind of over here. I don't really know. Let's put it there. And I'm going to duplicate this shape, Command D. Remember, in Maya, you do not copy and paste. You Command D to duplicate. No copying and pasting. All right, and this is going to be easier to work in top view now. I'm just going to kind of put it into place and then do our combine. So we're going to go down here. Again, you can turn on X-ray if you feel like you need that. That's okay. There's no harm in that. And that is not exactly where it needs to be. I'm just kind of getting them in order. Just trying to get them close to the area where they need. All right, put that there. Great. Let's go back to front view, and you're going to see we're going to be way above where we need to be. So let's drop one down, just right on top of it. And we still have some adjusting to do, so I'm going to hit F for focus here. And looks like I could rotate this just slightly. So let's use the E key and rotate. And let's do some snapping. So what I like to do is snap my vertices. And to do that, I hold the V key down and simply nudge the vertex. So you can see when I do that, it actually works out rather nicely. It will give me a nice snap. Now, it won't snap if there's not a vertex for it to touch. So it's something that we're going to need to address when we actually hit the combine button, because currently some of these faces will create n-gons. So we're going to have to kind of work those outward. We're going to do this. We're going to pull this in here. We're going to pull that right there. All right, that's pretty cool. And I would do the same thing to the other side. I might as well go ahead and do it just because I'm here. And if you kind of got that method, you can kind of fast forward. I can't fast forward because I'm in real time. No pun intended to the class name. But yeah, I gotta actually do this. So I'm gonna go and actually move this little guy down. So he is right on top of things. You notice when I didn't do that, I got like kind of a weird dark kind of a focus on it. That's called bad normals. That just means it wasn't in the right position. So I want it in the right position. And again, let the lines do the work for you. A lot of people think it's so hard to do 3D modeling. They get very overwhelmed. Work smarter, not harder is an old adage. It can get annoying, especially when you're frustrated with things. But when you actually do it and it works well, you got something nice to work with. So we're not completely done yet. What I'm going to do next is I know I need an edge ring. So I'm going to go back to my insert edge loop tool. And actually I'm going to do it on this one right here. And put one right there. And one right there. If I was smart, that should close those rings up. This edge loop tool is going to be a bit more difficult. It's something we're going to have to triangulate, so we'll need the multi-cut there. And for that multi-cut tool, we can simply click on this edge, and we can add an edge over there. So we'll have to probably combine this before we get too started here, but it'll be a lot easier once we have those edges. So we'll actually do that after we combine. All right, so let's combine these objects. So let's grab object mode real quick. There we go. Grab one, grab the other, mesh combine. Repeat the process with the next step, mesh combine. This is a good time to save, so I'm going to click save scene. All right, just in case. I should have done that actually before I combined. But now I'm going to go and hit the V key and my middle mouse button, or my right mouse button. It will snap to them. Again, I'm just snapping these down. Gotta be careful, you don't want to move it too much. It's good to move around, so just grab the one. And I'm only grabbing these because those are going to make more sense. I'll fix these in a second. And just because I combined them doesn't mean they're actually combined. So what I'm going to do is grab these edges and do a edit merge. Oops, an extrude, that will really blow it up. An edit merge. And I'm going to tighten those up. And if you've done it right, you'll see they're now attached, no matter what you do. And a little trick for that is if you have just one, let's say I have multiple vertices selected, right? And you'll see up here at the very top of your screen, it says P cylinder vertex 187 ... That ... means more than one is selected. So that's a little trick. So let me go back before my merge. So right now, let's see. There we go. If I grab them both, you'll see that. Keep going here before my merge. Let's snap that back. All right, so it's not selected, right? If I grab them both, I get the ... and you're like, wait, those aren't merged. Well, they're not. because you have the dot, dot, dot. As soon as I grab them all, like that, and I hit my merge function, it will go ahead and merge them. All right, so now when I grab them, it won't say dot, dot, dot because they're merged. All right, now we can use that multi-cut tool. So now I can go ahead and draw a connection between specific pieces. And again, I have to merge them still, but I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to grab one of them, hit V, snap, grab the top one, V, and then grab that, mesh, merge. You could even do that if you wanted to. That's actually not that bad of an idea, just to keep them kind of organized. What we could also do is we could merge these real quick and then get our multi-cut tool and boop, boop. That's probably in the air somewhere, so that's why it's not working out well for me. There we go, so we'll make another try. And we may need to fix this later, but this is just a good starting point. There we go. Already merged those. Let's merge these fellas. Yeah, they're merged. Okay, are these merged? Yeah. So there we go. So not too shabby. We're getting good geometry there. Let me go ahead and do it again to the other side. This other side should be a lot easier considering you know your method. I grab the two. I like this method where I merge them into the center. Merge them to the center. And then draw out a triangle. And when I do a triangle, like I said, I usually do just that. I actually make the physical triangle because that's a lot easier. So you can see this side goes a heck of a lot quicker. I actually want to grab that little fella and snap it upward. Grab the two of those, edit mesh, merge. Oh yeah, those merged well. And I need to do those, edit mesh, merge. Sometimes if they're far apart, merging is actually really nice because it will do the work for you. Multi-cut tool, and you can see it's not as tedious as people make it. Some people think this is like super hard, but if you get, once you get the right mindset for it, it's apples and oranges. You can do it really quickly. It's nothing that you haven't done before. So, all right, that's merged together. And I believe I did that one. Yes, I did that one. I'm using my cheat sheet up here. There we go. Now check this out. Now I have proper geometry. And that's really nice. If I wanted to get those rings in there, I could also expand my edge loops that way on this model as well. So if I wanted to go in, again with the multi-cut tool, and I wanted to draw those out, you can see it's kind of stopping at the triangles. So that's something that, you know, Maya is not calculating very nicely. It does need a triangle at the end, so just keep that in mind. But overall, we have the right setup for what we need. So let's go ahead and do something different here. Let's do edit, delete by type history. That's going to take all that old stuff away. I'm going to hit save, and now I have a nice low poly shell. Let's go ahead and extrude some of these guys up just to give them some depth. I'm going to just grab these fellas, and let's do a quick extrude. And I'm going to center my pivot for the extrude, pull it in, pull it up. I'm going to hit G to repeat the last command, G, and I'm going to just scale it in, just get to a nice rounded, maybe that's like the pour spout. Maybe this one's the opposite, maybe this one's kind of indented, so grab those real quick. Extrude, center my pivot, do this, pull it down a little bit, maybe hit G again, center the pivot, hit scale, scale it in, pull it down just slightly, and we're going to play with this a little more detail in a bit, but not too shabby. Now at this point I kind of can be a perfectionist, so sometimes I will kind of adjust my elements. So if you see any n-gons, I don't have them, but if you see them, go ahead and fix them now, or fix your topology. But overall, let's turn off the wireframe unshaded. We have that. Now some of you may notice, like on this side, we have a dent. Ugh. Now that dent is coming from not pushing these edges down to fit. So again, if you look really closely, actually you can see it's raised slightly. So that would be something that I would go in and fix. Maybe I would grab just these and you know, I would pull those down. And I can actually see another issue with this one, that it's not combined. So I forgot to merge one. Let's do merge. And now that's gonna help. So that is something that you can do, and you can see it's a lot better now. It's still, there's still a little bit there. I wouldn't put it past me that I missed one, so I'm gonna check all my edges, but overall that helped a little bit. That can also be fixed in the normals category. So if you go to your mesh display menu, you can actually do harden and soften edges. So if I soften all these edges, you'll see they kind of have a softer appearance, and it takes that. You can do harden edges under mesh display. That gives you, unfortunately, sometimes it gives you these bands, so you got to be careful of that. But you can do those to specific faces and whatnot, and great. So this is a pretty good low res kind of mesh. We may want to add, again, a few more dents here and there. So we may want to just simply, like something fell on the top of it, like dent it down a little bit. And again, I try to do everything as uniform as possible. It's kind of warped, but that is a really good way to kind of set up a low-res mesh. So that's our low-res mesh. In the next lesson, we'll continue this barrel more, and we will do a high-res mesh.